Before we dive into this twisted tale, hit that subscribe button on my YouTube channel. It's your front row seat to the drama about to unfold. Now, picture this. Me, standing in my kitchen, the air thick with the sharp tang of fermenting cabbage, my phone buzzing with angry texts from my kids, and a cryptic note from my granddaughter slipped under the door. It's a story of betrayal, bubbling secrets, and a gut reset gone wildly off course. My name's not important yet, but the mess I'm about to share? Oh, it's a recipe for chaos you won't see coming. I've always been the kind of woman who finds peace in the hum of a kitchen. The sizzle of onions, the slow churn of dough rising. It's my sanctuary. Lately, though, that sanctuary's been invaded. Not by mice or a leaky faucet, but by my own family. My kids, two grown adults who should know better, have been at my throat, and my grandkids? Well, they've turned into little spies, whispering secrets I'm not sure I want to hear. It all started with a jar of kimchi. See, I'd been feeling off. Tired, bloated, like my body was staging a quiet rebellion. A friend, Linda, the one with the loud laugh and the yoga obsession, kept raving about fermented foods. It's a gut reset, she'd say, waving a forkful of sauerkraut like it was a magic wand. You'll feel brand new. So I dove in. I bought mason jars, cabbage, salt, and a starter culture that smelled like a swamp. I chopped, I mashed, I waited. And when that first batch of kimchi hit my tongue, spicy, sour, alive, I thought, this is it. This is my comeback. But my kids didn't see it that way. My daughter, Claire, stormed into my house one Tuesday, her face pinched like she'd bitten a lemon. "Mom, what is that smell?" she demanded, eyeing the jars lined up on my counter like they were ticking bombs. "Are you seriously eating that stuff? It's disgusting." "It's good for me," I shot back, stirring a fresh batch. "You could use some yourself, might loosen up that attitude." She huffed, crossing her arms. "You're obsessed. And it's freaking out the kids. Lily won't even come over anymore because she says it smells like feet." Lily's my granddaughter, Claire's youngest. A sweet girl, usually, with a giggle that could melt ice. But lately, she'd been distant. I brushed it off. Kids get weird sometimes, but Claire's word stuck. Was my kimchi really driving a wedge between us? Then there was my son, Mark. He called me that same night, his voice tight. "Mom, I'm worried about you. This fermentation thing, it's not normal. Are you joining some kind of cult?" I laughed, loud and sharp. "A cult? Mark, it's cabbage, not a conspiracy." "Is it?" he snapped. "Because Dad's rolling in his grave, watching you turn into some hippie." That stung. My late husband, Tom, loved my cooking, plain old meatloaf and mashed potatoes, sure, but he'd have cheered me on with this, too. I hung up on Mark, my hands trembling as I shoved another jar into the fridge. The kids were ganging up on me, and I didn't know why. The next morning, I found the note. It was slipped under my front door, scribbled in Lily's loopy handwriting. "Grandma, stop the jars. Please. It's not safe." My stomach twisted. Not safe. What did she mean? I tried calling Claire, but she didn't pick up. Mark's phone went straight to voicemail. Even my text to Lily bounced back with a cold message failed to send. I stood there, staring at my kitchen counter, the jars glinting in the sunlight like little glass soldiers. Something was wrong, really wrong. And it wasn't just the kimchi. That afternoon, I decided to fight back. If they thought they could scare me out of my new hobby, they had another thing coming. I grabbed my car keys and headed to the farmer's market for more supplies. I'd show them. My gut reset wasn't just about me. It was about proving I could still take charge, still surprise them. But as I pulled out of the driveway, I didn't notice the shadow lurking by the mailbox, watching me go. The farmer's market was my happy place, a chaotic symphony of voices haggling over tomatoes, the earthy scent of fresh herbs, and stalls bursting with color. I needed that chaos today, something to drown out the unease gnawing at my gut. Lily's note, "It's not safe," kept looping in my head like a bad jingle. What wasn't safe? The kimchi? Me? I shook it off, gripping my reusable tote bag like a lifeline as I wove through the crowd. I was haggling with a grizzled old vendor over a head of cabbage, perfect for my next batch, when I felt it. Eyes on me. Not the casual glance of a stranger, but a heavy, deliberate stare. I turned, scanning the sea of faces, but no one stood out. Just moms with strollers, retirees with their dogs, and a guy in a plaid shirt juggling apples for a laugh. Still, the prickling on my neck wouldn't quit. "Everything okay, hon?" the vendor asked, his bushy brows knitting together as he handed me the cabbage. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just thought I saw someone I knew." He chuckled, a gravelly sound. "Market's full of ghosts if you look too hard." Ghosts. Great. Just what I needed. More spooky nonsense to fuel my paranoia. I paid him, stuffed the cabbage in my bag, and moved on to the spice stall. I was reaching for a jar of chili flakes when my phone buzzed. A text from Claire. "Mom, where are you? We need to talk. Now." I typed back, "At the market. What's so urgent?" No reply. Typical Claire, drop a bomb and vanish. I sighed, pocketing my phone, and that's when I saw him. A man in a gray hoodie, hood up, lingering by the honey stall across the aisle. He wasn't browsing. He was watching. Me. My heart did a little flip, not the good kind. I'm no spring chicken, but I've got instincts, and they were screaming run. Instead, I played it cool, drifting toward the pickles stand like I hadn't noticed him. The vendor there, a wiry woman with a gap-toothed grin, waved me over. "Hey, you're the fermentation lady, right? Linda's friend." I nodded, glancing sideways. Hoodie guy was still there, pretending to inspect a jar of honey. "That's me. Got any tips for a kimchi newbie?" She leaned in, her voice dropping. "Keep an eye on your jars." My cousin swore hers moved once, fermentation gone wild. Nearly took out her cat. I laughed, loud enough to mask the shiver running down my spine. Mine haven't attacked yet, but I'll watch out. As I paid for a jar of her dill pickles, I risked another look. Hoodie guy was gone. Relief washed over me, until I turned to leave and nearly crashed into Mark. "Mom," he barked, grabbing my arm. "What are you doing here?" I yanked free, clutching my bag. "Shopping, Mark." "What's your problem?" He looked rattled, his eyes darting around like he expected someone to jump out of the kale bins. "We've been trying to reach you. Claire's freaking out. She's upset." "Upset about what?" I pressed, my voice sharper than I meant it. "That note she left? What's going on, Mark?" He hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck. "It's complicated. Just come with me. We'll explain at Claire's." I crossed my arms. "Not until you give me something. I'm not a kid you can drag around." Mark sighed, glancing over his shoulder. "Fine. It's about Dad. And the jars. But we can't talk here." "Dad?" "Tom's been gone for years. Heart attack, quick and quiet." What did he have to do with my kimchi? Before I could demand more, Mark's phone rang. He answered, his face paling. "Yeah, she's with me. We're coming." He hung up and grabbed my elbow again. "Now, Mom. Please." I let him lead me to the car, my mind racing. The market faded behind us, but that prickling feeling didn't. As we pulled away, I caught a glimpse of gray hoodie in the rearview mirror, slipping into the crowd. My stomach churned, not from the fermentation, but from the sinking realization that my little gut reset had stirred up something much darker. At Claire's house, the air was thick with tension. She was pacing the living room, her hair a mess, while Lily and her brother, Ethan, sat on the couch, eyes glued to their tablets. Mark's wife, Tara, hovered by the kitchen, wringing a dish towel like it owed her money. Finally, Claire snapped, rounding on me. "Where were you?" "Getting cabbage," I said, holding up my bag. "What's this about Dad?" Claire froze, her mouth opening and closing. Lily looked up, her eyes wide and glassy. "Grandma, it's my fault," she whispered. I dropped the bag and knelt in front of her. "What's your fault, sweetie?" She bit her lip, glancing at Claire. "I told Mom about the letter." "What letter?" I asked, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. Claire groaned, sinking onto the couch. "It's nothing, Mom. Just... Lily found something in the attic. An old letter from Dad. She got spooked, that's all. Spooked about what? I pressed, standing up. And what's it got to do with my jars? Mark stepped in, his voice low. It's not the jars, Mom. It's you. The letter, it's about you starting over. Dad wrote it before he died. Said he was worried you'd change too much. I stared at him, the room tilting. Change too much? What's that supposed to mean? Tara piped up, her voice soft. He thought you'd lose yourself, trying to fix everything. Health stuff, new hobbies. He didn't want you to forget us. Forget you? I laughed, a brittle sound. I'm making kimchi, not running off to join the circus. Ethan snorted, breaking the tension. That'd be cool, though. Grandma the clown. Lily giggled, and even Claire cracked a smile. But the relief was short-lived. Mark pulled out a crumpled envelope, handing it to me. Read it, Mom. Then tell us you're not hiding something. I took the letter, my fingers trembling. Tom's handwriting stared back at me, familiar and jagged. If she starts over, don't let her go too far. Keep her close. The words hit like a punch. Was this why they were so rattled? They thought I was slipping away? Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Claire jumped, her face paling. Who's that? Mark peeked out the window, his jaw tightening. It's him. Him who? I demanded, but no one answered. The door creaked open, and there he was. Hoodie guy, sans hoodie, his face weathered and oddly familiar. He smiled, a slow, unsettling curve. Hey, kiddo, he said, looking right at me. Missed me? The room went silent, and my gut, fermented or not, told me this was about to get a whole lot messier. The air in Claire's living room turned thick, like the moment before a storm breaks. The man at the door stood there, his smile too wide, his eyes too sharp, like he knew something we didn't. I clutched Tom's letter, the paper crinkling in my fist, while my family stared at him like he just crawled out of a jar himself. Who are you? I demanded, stepping forward. My voice didn't waver, but my knees sure wanted to. He tilted his head, that grin never faltering. Name's Ray. Ray Carver. You don't remember me, do you? I squinted, searching his face. Craggy lines, graying stubble, a scar above his left eyebrow. Something flickered in the back of my mind, but it wouldn't stick. Should I? Claire cut in, her voice shrill. Mom, don't talk to him. Mark, get him out. Mark moved toward the door, but Ray raised a hand, calm as you please.
Easy now.
I'm not here to cause trouble. Just came to check on my old friend's wife. Wife. Tara echoed, her dish towel twisting tighter. You knew Dad. Ray nodded, his gaze sliding back to me. Tom and I go way back. Worked together at the plant, back when the shifts were long and the beer was cheap. He talked about you all the time, kiddo.
Kiddo.
The word hit me like a splash of cold water. Tom used to call me that, teasing me when I'd fuss over dinner or trip over the garden hose. But this guy? I didn't trust him. Not with that smile. Not with the way he'd been tailing me at the market. If you're such a good friend, I said, crossing my arms, why haven't I seen you before? Tom's been gone years. Ray's smile faltered, just for a second. Been away. Out of state. Heard you were stirring things up. Thought I'd drop by. Stirring things up? Mark snapped. What's that supposed to mean? Ray shrugged, leaning against the doorframe. Heard she's into fermentation now. Tom always said you had a knack for shaking things loose. The room went quiet again, except for Ethan snickering. Grandma's a shaker, not a stirrer, he muttered, earning a glare from Claire. I ignored the kid. My eyes locked on Ray. You followed me today. At the market. Why? His grin returned, but it didn't reach his eyes. Just curious. Wanted to see if you were still the Spitfire Tom bragged about. Guess you are. Claire grabbed my arm, pulling me back. Mom, he's creeping me out. Make him leave. But I shook her off, stepping closer to Ray. You've got 5 seconds to tell me what you really want, or I'm calling the cops. And trust me, I've got a mean swing with a rolling pin. Lily gasped, Grandma, no, but Ray just chuckled, raising his hands in surrender. All right. No need for violence. I'll spill. Tom left something for you, something he didn't want the kids knowing about. Asked me to hold on to it, deliver it when the time was right. My breath caught. What is it? Ray reached into his jacket, slow and deliberate, pulling out a small, weathered tin box. It was rusted at the edges, the kind Tom used to stash spare bolts or fishing lures. This, he said, holding it out. But it's for your eyes only. Mark lunged forward. No way. We're not letting you give her some mystery box. Mark, stop. I snapped, snatching the tin before he could. It was heavier than it looked, cool against my palms. If it's from Tom, it's mine. Claire's eyes narrowed. Mom, you don't even know if he's telling the truth. He could be some con artist. She's right, Tara added, her voice trembling. What if it's, I don't know, dangerous? Dangerous? I laughed, a little too loud. What's he gonna do? Pickle me to death? Ethan snorted again. Death by Dill. That'd be epic. Ray smirked, but there was a glint in his eye that made my stomach twist. Open it when you're alone, he said. Tom's orders. Before I could respond, he tipped an imaginary hat and slipped out the door, vanishing into the dusk. The silence that followed was deafening. My family turned on me like a pack of wolves. Mom, you can't keep that, Claire hissed. What if it's a trick? Yeah, Mark said, pacing again. This guy shows up out of nowhere, stalking you, and now he's got you holding some creepy box? I don't like it. I clutched the tin tighter. It's from your father. You read his letter. He wanted me to have this. Lily crept closer, her voice small. Grandma, what if it's why I wrote the note? What if it's bad? I knelt down, brushing her hair back. Sweetie, nothing from Grandpa could be bad. He loved us. She didn't look convinced, and neither did the others. But I wasn't about to let them take this from me. Tom's handwriting, his voice in that letter. It was like he'd reached out from beyond, and I wasn't letting go. That night, back home, I sat at my kitchen table, the tin box in front of me. The jars of kimchi bubbled softly in the background, a quiet chorus to my racing thoughts. My kids had begged me to wait, to let them be there when I opened it, but Ray's words echoed. For your eyes only. I traced the rusted lid, my fingers hesitating. What could Tom have hidden? Money? A secret? Something worse? I pried it open, the hinges squeaking like a warning. Inside was a folded note, a key, and a photo, me and Tom, young and laughing, at a picnic by the lake. My throat tightened as I unfolded the note. His scrawl filled the page. Kiddo, if you're reading this, you're starting over.
Good.
Don't let the kids stop you. The keys for the shed. Check the floorboards. Love you always. The shed? We hadn't used it since he died. Too many memories tangled in the cobwebs. I grabbed a flashlight and headed outside, the night air cool against my skin. The shed loomed in the backyard, dark and silent. I fumbled with the lock, the key slipping twice before it clicked. Inside, it smelled of dust and old wood. I tapped the floorboards with my foot, listening for a hollow sound. One creaked loose. I pried it up, my heart pounding. Underneath was a small wooden box, carved with my initials. I lifted it out, brushing off the dirt. It wasn't locked, just a latch. I flipped it open, and there they were, letters. Dozens of them, tied with a faded ribbon. My name was on every envelope in Tom's hand. I sank to the floor, the flashlight trembling in my grip. He'd written to me. After every fight, every late night at the plant, every quiet moment I thought he'd forgotten. And he'd hidden them, waiting for me to find my way back to him. But as I reached for the first letter, my phone buzzed. Claire again, Mom, Ray's back. He's outside. And he's not alone. I froze, the shed walls closing in. My gut reset had unearthed more than I'd bargained for, and whatever was waiting outside wasn't done with me yet. The shed felt like a trap now, the air heavy with dust and the weight of Tom's letters in my hands. My phone glowed with Claire's message, Mom, Ray's back. He's outside. And he's not alone. I shoved the wooden box under my arm, grabbed the flashlight, and stumbled out into the night. The backyard was dark, the moon half hidden behind clouds, casting jagged shadows across the grass. My heart thumped loud enough to wake the neighbors, but I kept moving toward the house, eyes darting for any sign of Ray. I reached the back door, fumbling with my keys, when I heard it, a low murmur, voices drifting from the front yard. Not just Ray's gravelly tone, but another, softer, unfamiliar. I slipped inside, locking the door behind me, and peeked through the kitchen window. There they were, Ray, leaning against his beat-up truck, and a woman, tall, wiry, her face obscured by a hood. She gestured wildly, pointing toward my house, while Ray nodded, that same unsettling smile plastered on his face.
My phone buzzed again.
Mark this time. Mom, get out. We're coming over. Claire's losing it. I typed back, stay put. I'll handle this, but my fingers shook. Handle it? I didn't even know what it was. I set the box of letters on the counter, next to the bubbling jars of kimchi, and grabbed a butcher knife from the block, not to use, just to feel less helpless. Then I crept to the living room, peering through the curtains. Ray and the woman were closer now, standing at the edge of my driveway. The woman's had slipped, revealing sharp cheekbones and a glare that could cut glass. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. Ray said something, too quiet to catch, and she nodded, pulling out a phone. Were they calling someone? Planning something? My gut, fermented or not, screamed trouble. I dialed Claire, keeping my voice low. Who's with Ray? What's happening? Mom, she hissed, her breath ragged. I don't know. He showed up 10 minutes ago, banging on my door, asking where you were. Then this woman pulled up, said she's family. I told them to leave, but they wouldn't.
Lily's scared, Mom.
She keeps saying it's her fault. Family? I frowned, glancing at the box. Whose family? I don't know. She wouldn't say. Just kept asking about you. And the jars. The jars. Again with the jars. I almost laughed. How had my little health kick turned into the circus? Stay there, I said.
Lock the doors.
I'm figuring this out. I hung up before she could argue and turned back to the window. Ray and the woman were gone. The driveway was empty, the truck still parked, its headlights off. Too quiet.
Too still.
I gripped the knife tighter, my pulse racing. Where'd they go? A soft knock on the back door made me jump. I spun around, the flashlight beam bouncing off the walls. Who's there? I called, my voice steadier than I felt. It's me, kiddo. Ray's voice drawled through the wood. Open up. We need to talk. I hesitated, then cracked the door an inch, knife hidden behind my back. Talk from there. And tell your friend to show herself. Ray chuckled, stepping into the porch light. The woman lingered behind him, her hood back up. She's shy, he said. But she's got a stake in this. Same as me. Stake in what? I snapped. Tom's letters? My house. What do you want, Ray? He leaned closer, his breath sour with coffee. Tom didn't tell you everything. Those letters, they're just the start. There's more he left behind, and we need it. We. I glanced at the woman. Who's she? She stepped forward, her voice low and clipped. Name's Ellen. Tom was my brother. My jaw dropped. Brother? Tom didn't have a sister. Ellen's lips twitched. Not quite a smile. Half-sister. Different moms, same dad. He kept me quiet, didn't want the family drama. But I'm here now, and I want what's mine. I stared at her, the pieces clicking too fast to process. Tom had a sister? A secret sibling he'd never mentioned? I tightened my grip on the knife. And what's that supposed to be? The land. Ray cut in. Tom owned a plot, small, out by the lake. He left it to you, but Ellen's got a claim. It's in the letters, if you'd read, The lake? I blinked. That picnic photo, the one in the tin, flashed in my mind. We'd spent summers there, fishing, laughing. Tom never said it was ours. You're lying. He'd have told me. Ellen's eyes narrowed. He didn't tell you about me either, did he? Check the letters. It's all there. I slammed the door shut, locking it, and leaned against it, my head spinning. A secret sister. A hidden plot of land. My kids freaking out over kimchi. This wasn't a gut reset, it was a full-blown conspiracy, and I was smack in the middle. I grabbed the box and tore into the letters, scanning Tom's words. There was halfway through the stack. Kiddo, the lake spot's yours. Don't let anyone take it, especially not Ellen. She'll fight dirty. Ray's watching out, but trust your gut. My gut. The same gut I'd been trying to fix with cabbage and salt. I almost laughed. Tom always had a knack for bad timing. The knocking started again, harder now. Open up, Ellen shouted. We're not leaving till we settle this. I shoved the letters back in the box and marched to the front door, flinging it open. Ray and Ellen stood there, startled. You want to settle it? I said, brandishing the knife, not swinging, just showing.
Fine.
But you're not bullying me out of anything. Tom left it to me, and that's that. Ray raised his hands, smirking. Easy, kiddo. We're not here to fight. Just talk. Talk. Ellen scoffed. She's got a knife, Ray. She's unhinged. Unhinged. I shot back. You're the one stalking me over a patch of dirt. Headlights swept the driveway. Mark's car, followed by Claire's. They piled out, kids in tow, faces a mix of panic and fury. Mom, Claire yelled. What's going on? Grandma's got a knife. Ethan crowed, grinning.
Cool.
Lily clung to Claire, whispering, I told you it was bad. Ray stepped back, hands still up. Looks like the cavalry's here. We'll go for now. But this ain't over. Ellen glared at me, then at the kids. You'll regret this, she muttered, before stalking off with Ray to the truck. They peeled out, leaving us in a cloud of dust and confusion. Mark rounded on me. Mom, what the hell?
Who are they?
I lowered the knife, my hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. Tom's passed, apparently, and it's got claws. Claire hugged Lily tight. This is about your stupid jars, isn't it? I knew they'd cause trouble. I laughed, a wild, ragged sound. Oh, honey, the jars are the least of it. Grab a spoon, we're gonna need some gut strength for this mess. We piled inside, the kids chattering, Mark and Claire arguing over what to do next. I set the box on the table, Tom's letters spilling out like a confession. My family was a mess, my kitchen was a war zone, and now I had a secret sister gunning for a lake plot I didn't even know I owned. But as I spooned out kimchi for everyone, ignoring their groans, I felt a spark. Tom trusted me to handle this, and I'd be damned if I let him down. The kitchen was a battlefield of its own that night. Jars of kimchi open, spoons clinking, and my family bickering like they were auditioning for a reality show. Claire kept shooting me death glares. Mark was Googling property laws on his phone, and the grandkids were staging a mock trial with a pickle spear as the gavel.
Me?
I sat there, Tom's letters spread out like a map to a treasure I wasn't sure I wanted. Mom, Claire said, slamming her spoon down. This is insane. A secret sister? A lake plot? What's next, a hidden pirate ship? I smirked, sipping my tea. Don't tempt fate, honey. I looked terrible in an eye patch. Ethan piped up, waving the pickle. Grandma the pirate. Arg, hand over the kimchi, mateys. Lily giggled, but her eyes were still wary. What if that lady comes back, Grandma? She was mean. I reached over, squeezing her hand. She won't get far. We've got the letters and each other. That's enough. Mark looked up from his phone, frowning. Not quite. I checked the county records. There's a deed in Dad's name for a half-acre by the lake, dated 20 years ago. It's real, Mom. And it's yours. The room went quiet, even Ethan pausing mid-pickle swing. Claire leaned forward. So, Ellen's telling the truth? She's got a claim? No, I said, tapping the letter in front of me. Tom was clear. Don't let her take it.
He knew she'd try.
Raisin on it too, I bet. Mark rubbed his temples. Great. So we've got a family feud and a creepy sidekick. What do? I stood, gathering the letters. We go to the lake. Tomorrow. See what's there. If it's mine, we protect it. If it's nothing, we end this. Claire groaned. Mom, this isn't a treasure hunt. Call the cops. And say what? I shot back. My dead husband's secret sister's mad about my sauerkraut? They'd lock me up. Ethan snorted. Grandma in jail. Now that's a story. Zip it, pickle boy, I said, winking. Get some sleep, all of you. We're road tripping at dawn. The next morning, we piled into Mark's SUV, me, Claire, Mark, Tara, and the kids, armed with coffee, snacks, and a jar of kimchi for good luck. The lake was an hour's drive, a quiet stretch of water framed by pines and memories. Tom and I used to fish there back when the kids were small and life was simpler. I hadn't been back since he passed. As we pulled up, the air smelled of damp earth and nostalgia. But there was something else, a tension I couldn't shake. The plot was unmarked, just a clearing with a rickety dock and a shed smaller than the one in my backyard. This is it, Claire asked, kicking a rock. Doesn't look worth fighting over. Looks can lie, I said, stepping out. I pulled the key from Tom's tin box, the one from the shed, and headed for the door. It creaked open, revealing a dusty space with a single chair, a table, and a metal box bolted to the floor. Mark knelt, prying it open with a crowbar from the car. Inside was a folder, yellowed but intact. Deeds, photos, and another letter. I read it aloud. Kiddo, this is our spot. I bought it for us for when the kids grew up. Ellen's got no claim. Her dad signed it over to me fair and square. Keep it safe. Love, Tom. Tara smiled. He really planned ahead, didn't he? Yeah, I said, my voice catching. He did. Before we could celebrate, tires crunched on gravel. Ray's truck rolled up, Ellen in the passenger seat, her face a storm cloud. They stepped out, Ray twirling a wrench like a bad movie villain. Hand it over, Ellen snapped. That land's mine by blood. Blood doesn't mean squat, I said, holding up the deed. Tom owned it. It's mine now. Ray smirked. Deeds can disappear, kiddo. Accidents happen. Mark stepped forward, fists clenched. Try it, buddy. I've got a lawyer on speed dial. Claire joined him, phone out. And I'm recording. Smile for the internet, creeps. Ellen faltered, but Ray laughed. You think a video'll stop us? We got friends who'd love the spot. Friends, I said, crossing my arms. Or just you two, bluffing? Lily tugged my sleeve. Grandma, the jar? I blinked, then grinned. The kimchi. I grabbed it from the car, unscrewed the lid, and held it out. One step closer, and you're wearing this. Fermentation's a weapon, you know. Ethan hooped. Kimchi bomb.
Boom.
Ray wrinkled his nose, stepping back. You're nuts. Proudly, I said. Now get lost, or I'll ferment your truck next. Ellen glared, but the fight was draining out of her. This isn't over, she muttered, dragging Ray back to the truck. They sped off, leaving us in a cloud of dust and victory. We stood there, the lake shimmering behind us, and I felt lighter than I had in years. Well, I said, who's up for a picnic? Claire groaned, but she was smiling. Only if you leave the kimchi in the car. Deal, I said, laughing. But I'm keeping the land. That afternoon, we spread a blanket by the water, the kids splashing at the dock, Mark and Tara snapping photos, Claire grudgingly eating a sandwich. The letter sat beside me, Tom's words a quiet comfort. My gut reset had turned into something bigger, a family reset, a reclaiming of what mattered. Ellen and Ray might slink back someday, but I'd be ready with my kids, my grandkids, and maybe a few more jars for good measure. As the sun dipped low, Ethan ran up, dripping wet. Grandma, can we build a cabin here? With a kimchi cellar? I ruffled his hair. Kid, you're speaking my language. Let's see what we can ferment next. And with that, the lake plot wasn't just land. It was ours, a new chapter bubbling up from the past, spicy and alive.